My wife and I got married last summer. Her family lives across the country from us, so up until this point I had never actually visited them. But I had met them a handful of times and we've always gotten along fine. They invited us to come visit and stay with them for a few days and we took them up on the offer. We flew in yesterday, and everything went well. Her dad and I watched football while she caught up with her mom and sisters, and then we had a really nice dinner. But things went south at the end of the night when it was made clear that they didn't want me sharing a bed with my wife while in their home, and that they expected me to sleep on the couch. I honestly thought they were joking at first, but they insisted we sleep separately. I had a problem with the implication that I shouldn't be allowed to sleep next to my wife, and I also have a bad back and the couch did not look the least bit comfortable. They don't have a guest room. After arguing back and forth for a bit, I decided to leave and book a hotel. I told my wife she didn't have to come with me. She chose to stay and I said I'd come back the next day. I went off to a Marriott about 10 miles away and got a good night's sleep, trying to not let the whole situation bother me. This morning, I called my wife asking when I should come by. She told me her parents want me to apologize for leaving the way I did. I told her that I'm willing to apologize to keep the peace, but they need to acknowledge that it wasn't appropriate to insist I can't share a bed with my own wife. She said she'd talk to them and call me back. About 10 minutes later, I hear back from her, and she tells me that not only will they not apologize for it, they are now insisting I need to come back and stay on the couch for the rest of our visit. And if I don't agree to this, I'm not welcome back in the house. I'm pretty livid at this point. I told her that there's absolutely no chance that I will do that, and I am no longer willing to offer any sort of apology. My wife's sisters are now bothering me, saying this is just the way their parents are, that my wife is very upset, and that I need to just give in and stay on the couch for the rest of the trip before this turns into some sort of family feud. From my perspective, I don't care what they think and I'm willing to treat the rest of this trip as a solo vacation, go sightseeing and meet my wife back at the airport at the end of the week. Am I an idiot? Update. I took the advice of one of the posters here to ask my wife and her sisters to meet me for dinner apart from their parents. It was interesting to say the least. After we sat down, I leaned into them a bit about what had happened. I asked my wife if she knew her dad was going to demand we sleep separately, and she said she was surprised by it as well. She'd expect that if I were still just her boyfriend. But we're married now. I then asked them all if they thought it was okay for their parents to act the way they did. They said it wasn't, but they know their father and it's best to just let things like this go. This led to a somewhat uncomfortable conversation about how controlling he can get, how he angers easily when he doesn't get his way, and that he was already throwing a fit over me disrespecting him by leaving. The reason they were all trying to get me to come back and apologize was because he would find some way to make them all miserable for the rest of the week if I didn't. I told my wife I was really disappointed that she wouldn't side with her husband when I was clearly in the right, and she went sort of quiet. I then asked if they thought this was even about house rules, because it seemed more like their dad was just trying to show me who was in charge. They agreed. Up to this point I had really done everything I could to not escalate this situation, but I started to get really mad that they were also afraid of how their dad would react. I decided I needed to push back a bit. I know my wife was mainly here to spend time with her sisters who she rarely gets to see, so I told them all I was going to move to a hotel by the beach about an hour away in San Diego for the rest of the week and I'd book a second room for them if they wanted to all join. They don't get to go on trips much, so I figured they'd be excited to get a free vacation away from their parents. They know that their dad is probably going to freak out when they leave, but I think they realized this situation had gone too far, so they decided they would come and deal with the fallout afterwards. So that's where this all stands for now. I'm about to check out of my hotel and hit the road for San Diego. My wife and her sisters are coming down in a separate car after their parents leave for work. I fully expect their dad to throw a conniption fit when he finds out they left without telling him, but I really don't care at this point. I tried to be the bigger person at every turn, but he pushed this all way too far. Not an idiot. Your in-laws are abhorrent hosts. It's their house, their rules, and their rules are stupid. Rather than fighting a pointless battle, you set a clear and valid boundary, and they chose to take offense to it. They want you to stay on their couch because it's a power play. You staying in a hotel takes that power away, and they can't handle it. The fact that your wife doesn't have your back on this is a giant red flag. Good luck. Not an idiot. Tell your wife you're going to book your ticket home for today. Ask her if she wants you to change her ticket to go home with you or if she wants you to cancel it because she'd rather live with her parents forever. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the wife. Now for the next story. Am I an idiot for telling my girlfriend that she needs to learn when to shut the frick up? I, 24, male, and have been dating my girlfriend, 23, female, for about 5 months. Every other month, my grandmother hosts a large family dinner with all my close relatives. She encouraged me to invite my girlfriend over for dinner yesterday. For some context, my entire family and I are black, and my girlfriend is from a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant family. I was at dinner yesterday, and I went to hang out with my niece, 7, female, who I'm very fond of, and the rest of the kids to play Monopoly. My girlfriend tagged along. My niece was counting the play money to pass out to everyone, and one of the other kids said something about how he wanted to be rich and get all the $500 bills. My niece, out of nowhere, blurted out that she couldn't be rich because she's an N-word. I was totally taken aback and asked her who told her that. Apparently, some bully at school said that to her on career day when they were sharing dream jobs, and she said she wanted to be a rich president. I told her that that wasn't true at all and hugged her, and she started crying. Then, my girlfriend jumped in and told my niece that it's really important to forgive the boy who said that because he probably wasn't trying to be mean and was just confused. I was totally shocked and told her she needs to stop trying to justify what happened. She then tried to hush me and started baby talking my niece and said that she should also try to be nicer to all the kids at school because kindness goes both ways. I was totally livid at this point and pulled my girlfriend aside and quietly but angrily told her she needs to learn when to shut the frick up. She started getting riled up at me and started rambling about how statistics are on her side. What the hell she meant? I wasn't really processing what she was saying, but I told her to get out of my grandma's home and just leave already. She drove me here in her car and I was planning to hitch a ride home with my brother. This morning, I got multiple calls from my girlfriend's sisters calling me an abusive and shitty prick. I know my words were harsh, but I thought my girlfriend was talking in a disgusting manner to my niece. Am I an idiot? Not an idiot. The fact that she immediately jumped to excusing racism is very troubling. I get that they're kids and just parroting what their adults say, but that doesn't mean they should be coddled, and it definitely doesn't mean that your niece owes kindness to unkind people. Not an idiot. What the actual frick, my dude? Sounds like someone is feeling some kind of racist way and feels called out and it's not your niece. This is a conversation you need to sit down and have with her over how she doesn't get to just whitewash, literally, racism in your black household with children being called slurs by other children. Ignorant or not. That situation was highly inappropriate on her end, and I say that as a walking jar of mayonnaise. Now for the next story. Am I an idiot for dropping out as my brother's best man a couple days before his wedding? My 36 brother, 30, got married this past weekend. I was supposed to be his best man. The wedding was 12 plus because they didn't want to have to deal with toddlers and such, which is fair enough. A lot of guests do have young kids though, so they decided to have a venue nearby with a professional sitter if parents wanted to drop kids off there. My wife has some injuries that make her slow to respond, understand what others are saying, and she needs help sometimes with her food. I'll cut it up into small pieces. This doesn't mean she's nothing and she's a smart, capable woman. They had the rehearsal dinner. At the end, my sister-in-law pulled me aside saying she had to discuss something with me. She said they told us about the additional venue they'll be having for their wedding. I said yes, then she asked if my wife had any particular food preferences, and they would order extra food for her there. I was extremely confused and told her we already gave our meal choices, but she said my wife would be better suited at the second venue. I remember just sort of staring at her for a bit and asking if she was serious, that she expected my wife to be with the babysitter. My sister-in-law said it's not like that and they're just looking out for my wife, and I don't have to feed her or anything and can have fun at the wedding. My brother came over and I told him I've literally never heard such a shot, that they think my wife is a child left with a sitter. Brother said it's for the best and if I want I can always go over and check on her. I told him if this is the way they're treating my wife, I have no desire to be part of their shitshow and dropped out as best man. Well, all hell broke loose and some people agreed I was right. But my parents texted, called, everything saying they don't agree with this either but it's their choice, and to get over my ego and come. I didn't end up going. I did hear they got one of the groomsmen to give a speech and overall it was fine. But my brother sent me a text saying he expected better from me. I replied back saying I expected better from him. My sister-in-law sent a long-ass text that I ruined their big day on purpose and made them look bad. Not an idiot. What kind of garbage is that? Oh, can your wife just go sit at the equivalent of the kids' table? We don't think she's capable of being a functional adult. I'd have left and not looked back. Anyone pushing you that you did anything wrong should think what they would do in the same situation. And if they say they wouldn't support their spouse, that says a lot about them. Not an idiot. The audacity of them to discriminate against your wife because of her condition is astounding and disturbing. I don't care if it was their wedding. They had no right to treat your wife like that and you did the right thing by calling them out on their behavior and not attending the wedding. Now for the last story. Am I an idiot for telling my brother-in-law to get over himself and to quit holding a 10-year-old grudge? My brother-in-law, married to my sister, is a general contractor. About 10 years ago, my dad and brother were building a deck at my parents' home. They asked my brother-in-law if they could borrow his skid loader, but he said no. They prepared the ground as best they could without the skid loader but got to the point they couldn't go on without it. They went to my sis's house to ask again but found out my brother-in-law went out of town. They talked my sis into letting them borrow it, so she took them down to his construction lot and they hooked it up to Dad's truck. This next part I'm not sure of since I don't know much about towing, but from what I was told, Dad's truck wasn't big enough or powerful enough to tow the skid loader on the dump trailer, so he lost control and wrecked. The truck, trailer, and skid loader were totaled. The insurance was barely enough to cover the medical costs and the truck. There was none left over to cover my brother-in-law's stuff. When he got back to town, he exploded. He threatened to sue and things just went downhill from there. My parents are not rich and he wouldn't have gotten anything, so in the end, sis talked him into letting it go. However, from that day on he wouldn't have anything to do with our family. He doesn't come for birthdays, holidays, or anything at all. Next month is our parents' 50th anniversary and we're planning a big family gathering to celebrate. We're also chipping in to send our parents on a cruise to Mexico because they've never been out of the country. I spoke to sis about it the other day and she said she's coming with the kids, but my brother-in-law is not coming. I was fine with that, but when we were discussing their portion of the cruise money, I heard him yelling in the background to deduct their portion from the cost of the skid loader and dump trailer. That pissed me off. After my call with my sis, I called my brother-in-law and told him to get over himself. I told Dad and bro made a mistake, but that was 10 years ago and he needs to let it go. He said he'll let it go when they give him the money he lost. I told him he's an ass for holding on to a grudge and putting money in the way of a family relationship. Sis called me a few minutes ago and said they're not coming and that I was out of line. We argued for a bit and that's where it stands. I don't think I'm wrong for telling him to let go of the past, but they're not coming to the anniversary party, so now I'm not sure. Answers to your questions, let's get something straight. My dad and brother are not bad people. They are good people who made a mistake. They couldn't pay back my brother-in-law because he wanted almost $70,000, and again, we're not rich. Dad had to buy another truck because he needed it to go to work. On the other hand, my brother-in-law had 3 other sets of skid loaders and dump trailers on his lot that day so he could take the financial hit while my parents would be homeless. Brother-in-law and sis are way better off than the rest of us, so while I understand your reasoning of paying brother-in-law back, he doesn't need it. The cruise to Mexico isn't some millionaire trip. The total cost is about $3,000 and it'll take over 20 people to pay for that. Again, we're not rich. We can barely cover $3,000 spread out over 20 people, so there's no way we can pay $70,000. You're an idiot. Your family stole $50K plus in work equipment from your brother-in-law. They didn't pay him back. By the sounds of it, showed zero remorse, and he should just get over it. You and your family sound massively entitled. Your brother-in-law is smart to cut a lot of you clean off. You're an idiot. They didn't make a mistake. They stole his shot on purpose when he was gone and broke it. It's easy for the guilty party to forget the past, especially when they never did anything to make amends. What have they ever done to try and make it up to their brother-in-law in the 10 years since they stole and broke his stuff?